All right, so this is happening right now. Former President Donald Trump just wrapping up right now this rally in Mesa, Arizona. Moments ago, the former commander-in-chief stumping for statewide Republican candidates, including Kari Lake running for governor and Blake Masters eyeing a seat in the U.S. Senate. We're bringing back Niall Stanage, White House columnist with our partners at The Hill for instant analysis. And Niall, I want to hit this first point. You know, the former president, we heard hurling accusations at the FBI over the raid of Mar-a-Lago and accusing his presidential predecessors, including Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama, of also improperly taking records from the White House when they left office. What do you make of these claims?
I think they're pretty wild claims. I think they're part of a smokescreen that the former president is trying to put up to protect his own interests in this ongoing probe. There are, stories, for example, that President Carter left the nuclear codes in his suit pocket, and it went to the dry cleaners, things of that nature. But those stories are separate from what we're talking about legally with former President Trump, which is the suggestion that he withheld information from the National Archives and that some of that information was classified and posed a risk by virtue of being at his private home. Not a proven case, of course, yet, but that's what we're talking about, and these other comments are distractions, really, from that.
Yeah, we're taking a live look at the stage right now. Is there anything else about his speech tonight that really stood out to you?
Yes, I think one thing that really stood out was he seemed to be suggesting already that the elections that we'll see in a month's time could be fake or fixed or shady in some way. On at least two occasions, he told voters in Arizona that it would be better if they voted on election day rather than by mail, and he framed that as a suggestion that that was a safer or more secure way to vote. So really, it seemed to me anyway, setting the stage for possible future election challenges if his preferred candidates didn't win this election. Now, aside from that, it was rather standard Trump fare, talking about crime, talking about border security, talking about inflation, and of course, extolling his own record while in office. It was really that election point that stood out most to me.
That's interesting. I don't think that is something we've heard from him before in terms of future forecasting for something to watch out for and speaking to his base. Arizona is, of course, a border state. We certainly heard a lot about border security and immigration throughout the rally. Do you think that his messaging landed with Republicans in the state?
I would say it did with Republicans. I mean, as you say, it's a border state. That makes immigration by its nature a very important issue. It's something that the Republican candidates have sought to make a lot of in themselves. So I would imagine that former President Trump's remarks could have helped in that. He also brought up to the stage a leader of a border union, a border agents union, to make his case for why Republican candidates should be elected and to express the hope that former President Trump should run again. So it was a very central issue. I think it does appeal to Republicans. It has some appeal to independents, but the question is, will it be the pivotal thing that swings voters in this forthcoming election?
Certainly, and we'll have to watch. Niall Stanage, appreciate you. Have a great evening.
Thanks, you too, Natasha.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.